Hey everybody, Meisterbloo back here, and let's continue on immediately where we left off because this is the big moments are happening. Rena, that day, what happened to Satoshi? Rena knew. She knew what became of Satoshi. No, forget about what happened to a guy in the past. Rena knew what was going to happen to me. Answer me, Rena! Satoshi, what happened to him? With that, I grabbed Rena's shoulder violently and forcibly turned her around to face me. As I faced her, I felt a jolt travel through my entire body. I told you, Keiji-kun. It was that person I didn't know. At least it definitely wasn't the Rena Ryukyu I'd been talking to up until now. The voice just now didn't have a trace of the trembling or emotion that it had before. The amount of regret I felt for turning her around so carelessly was unsurpassed. That gaze that pierced like a cold needle, that smile on her face that invoked an image of having been carved out by a knife. Chills went down my spine. My mind froze under a layer of rime. Both of Rena's eyes pierced through mine, leaving me unable to look away. As if to remind me of the fear from that time before, Rena brought her face close to mine, so close I could feel her breath. Her face had filled my entire field of vision. Then, her sharply shaped lips grew even sharper. Like the curve of a crescent moon, she grinned. I told you, Keiji-kun. After a short pause, Rena repeated the same words again. Satoshi-kun, you see? Transferred out. Transferred? Meaning what? What Rena must have been some new definition of transfer that I was previously not aware of. My throat and lips dried up. I couldn't even acknowledge what I had just heard. All I could do was swallow down my own saliva. It would seem that Rena saw that as a nod. She pulled her gaze back and spryly stepped back 2-3 paces. As she did, my legs gave out and I fell to my knees pathetically. Rena, and me on my knees underneath her emotionless smile. That had to be a very odd sight indeed. Seeing me in that pathetic state, she neither scoffed at me nor held out her hand. But I could neither stand nor escape with her gaze shooting through my eyes. There was undoubtedly a metal bat in my hand, but right now it was useless to me. I was like a fly caught in her web. Heavy sweat beaded all over my body. I could feel it dripping from my skin. But you won't, will you, Keiji-kun? Rena finally released me from that cage of time after what felt like an eternity. But her question was missing something important and was incredibly vague. Once again, I swallowed hard, urging her on. Do what? What did she not want me to do? Transfer. I love it! I love it so much! Oh, it's so good! I'm loving this thing. I can't wait for chapter 2! I want this entire thing out. Pinch hitter achievement unlocked. You probably can't see it because my face is covering that, but... Oh god, I need a drink! I need a drink of water! Some delicious, delicious water. It's a rare commodity here in California at the moment. Satoshi and I had what? All my well-planned actions throughout the day turned out to have been nothing more than a reenactment of what Satoshi had done. Satoshi, had he really been in the same situation that I was in now? The friends he had gotten along with had changed suddenly, and for no reason, at least none that I had noticed, planned to kill him. Then, fearing for his life as I am, he got a bat to protect himself and carried it around every day to practice his swing. And then one day, suddenly, he transferred. My blood went cold, causing a prickling sensation to course through my veins. Starting near my heart, it radiated outwards, from the top of my head to the soles of my feet, chilling every part of me without recourse. What did she mean by transfer? What did she mean by transfer? Was Satoshi still at wherever he transferred to? Was he the only one who would be able to understand me? Would he be able to tell me why it all ended up like this? More importantly, where did he transfer to? What did she mean by transfer? What did she mean by transfer? Before I knew it, I was at my front door. The frigid knob was hard to turn. Was nobody home? It wasn't that odd of an occurrence. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a single key attached to my first seal keychain. I stepped into the entryway. Just as I was about to take off my shoes, a chill ran down my spine. Someone had entered right behind me. Like a classmate messing around, standing right up against my back. You're kidding, right? It had to be my imagination. Logically speaking, it wasn't impossible for someone to be able to hide their presence within my personal space all the way through the door. But there was undoubtedly someone behind. God, this is making me paranoid. This is making me so paranoid. I keep wanting to there's nothing behind me. Hey now, Keiji. How do you know they're there, even though they're behind you? Because I could hear the sound of flowing hair. There's no other reason I'd hear that sound. That was the presence. Because I could hear the sound of them blinking. Keiichi Maebara, there's no way you could hear that. It was mostly instinct than it was more instinct than anything else that was warning me of that presence. Common sense was telling me that it was just my imagination. It was just my imagination. There was nobody behind me. I began to erase that mental image of an eerie figure standing behind me. But at the same time, I asked myself, if there was nobody, then what was I feeling? As an uncomfortable sensation crawled up my spine. Actually, wouldn't it be better if there was somebody there? If there was somebody there, then you could turn around. Would you be able to accept that? I'd be able to answer all those questions just by looking at me. Or just by looking behind me. But I didn't have enough courage to even do that simple task. Oh, right. I could try speaking to them. The person behind me might answer me. It was a random thought. I didn't care how I went about it, just as long as I didn't have to turn around. If I had calmed down and thought about it, I would have known that that wouldn't have solved anything. Who is it? I spoke in such a hoarse, broken voice that I couldn't believe it was my own. I could almost feel them contemplating their response. I felt it. There's no way I should be able to do that. Calm down, Keiichi. It's all in your head. That time, I was certain I heard it. As if hesitantly trying to answer my inquiry, I was certain that I could hear the sound of somebody inhaling. I heard it. I heard it. I heard it clearly. It was a girl. God, this is spooky. I'm gonna look at my camera. You guys are gonna keep me safe, right? If something happens to me, I want you guys to take care of the channel for me. A young girl. I didn't know who, but a tiny speck of courage in me, however reckless it was, inspired a primal yet fitting solution to this current predicament. A scream. All the force in my body released from my lungs and through my throat, ceasing all thought process in my head. Suppressing all thoughts and emotions, I began to collapse like a house of cards, somehow managing to twist my body and look back as I did so. It was definitely there. Right there. Somebody was there. Until the moment I turned around, until I brought the area behind me into my field of vision, they were definitely there. Falling face up, my eyes traced the remnants of the presence suspended in the empty space. It couldn't be. They were invisible. They looked like they weren't there. But were they actually still standing there? As I screamed, all the emotions I was holding back burst free in a violent wave. However, I was decidedly calm as my emotional dam collapsed. The turbulent wave of pent-up emotions was skillfully diverted into a torrent of aggression. That emotion was definitely required to extricate myself from the bizarre situation happening right in front of me. In my state of heightened lucidity, I entrusted my body to the fury. the metal bat held firm in my right hand as if drawn there by a magnet. A mid-level sweep would be the hardest attack to dodge. I remembered reading something like that from a book about swordsmanship or something. Ah! I brandished my will to fight. The afterimage of the amalgamation of metal flashed as it swung from left to right, beating against the entryway. The bat slammed into the right wall, the tip rebounding vertically. Creepy music, god damn it. I'm such a pansy when it comes to scary games, but I love them so much. The bat slammed violently into the right wall, the tip rebounding violently. Very calmly, I transferred the force of the rebound into a sweep to the left. The door of the shoe cupboard was split into pieces. Those two swings whiffed through empty space, but they seemed to have great psychological impact on the enemy. I could feel the panic emanating from the space. The attack wasn't the only thing required. I extracted the bat from the cupboard. It was embedded in and screamed as I spun my entire body in a large arc. My screams shook the air, imbuing my ferocious swing with even more destructive power. Crack! Without mercy or restraint, my violent strike, with certainly fatal force behind it, shattered the top of the cupboard. None of my attacks struck the enemy, but my ferocity had certainly seemed to impact them. Breathing heavily, my entire body soaked in sweat, the invisible enemy there, but not there, dispersed. When I was certain that the enemy had retreated, I locked the front door and latched the chain. No way. Had it only feigned retreat and now was inside of my house? Once again, I channeled my aggression and searched the house for the presence, but it was gone. I had succeeded in fending it off. At that moment, the tension drained from my body and I let out a deep sigh of relief. Every time you see me glance at the camera, it's because, like, I have a fan on right there, and it keeps, like, blowing the wind, like, right on my back, and I'm just like, no. All of the emotions I had been holding back chaotically merged together and began to flood out. A hodgepodge of fear, accomplishment, and disbelief all mixed together and began to flow through my body. Unable to deal with each individual feeling, I beat them all back with the strongest, exhaustion. Even in this moment, I remained composed. Oh god, I apologize so much. After checking that all of the doors throughout the house were locked, I went up to my room on the second floor and closed the curtains. I straightened my back and tilted my head back a little. After clearing my mind of all idle thoughts, I managed to calm down even more. What was that at the front door? There was definitely something there. Thinking about it, maybe it was just an apparition I dreamt up in my confused state. But I didn't really think that was the case. Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. Compose yourself. But no matter how calmly I thought about it... Oh god, now with the yawning, I was doing so well. What just happened wasn't a figment of my imagination. It was obviously a supernatural phenomenon, and without a doubt, something was behind me. It wasn't some sort of illusion I saw amidst my confusion and disorientation. Proof? I had just one piece. When I asked, "Who is it?" they inhaled as if they were about to answer. That sound had clearly reached my ears. The situation I was in right now was still unclear. Either I'd been possessed by the supernatural phenomenon known as Uyashiro-sama's curse, or this was a ruse by the villagers who believed in it and were imitating it. Either way, their motives were unclear. The roundabout way it had been done was also still a mystery. If it was perpetrated by humans, that would mean admitting that it was Reina and the rest of them doing it, but it would be solvable. Oishi-san and the rest of the police would surely arrest my enemy. But if it was a manifestation of Uyashiro-sama's curse, I wondered what could happen. Oishi-san very clearly declared that curses didn't exist. At that time, those words were pretty dependable, but as things were now, with the rising possibility that the perpetrators were not human, he suddenly seemed quite unreliable. If I told Oishi-san that this was the work of Oyashiro-sama's curse, what would happen? I couldn't imagine his reaction. but it would go without question that... Oh, God. It would go without question that a void would expand rapidly between myself and Oishi-san. With me having so few allies to begin with and not being able to confidently declare whether or not this was a curse or not, there was no merit in doing that. I'd be better off keeping the facts of what had just happened at the doorway to myself. It would be better if I didn't add what happened there to the memo behind the clock. There was still the ever so slight possibility that I was actually confused when I thought I was composed, and that I was just going berserk in the entryway. How wonderful would it be if that was really what happened? I would be able to refute Oyashiro-sama's curse. But I denied Oyashiro-sama's curse. Oh, but if I denied Oyashiro-sama's curse, then that would mean admitting that Rena and the rest were the perpetrators. If I said that Rena and the rest weren't the perpetrators, then that would mean believing in Oyashiro-sama's curse. By denying both of those, I would be admitting that I myself was losing it. Ah, my ear itches! The three options from which I couldn't choose became a trilemma of sorts. So sleepy. They mixed together and formed a whirlpool in my head, making my head spin. Once again, I straightened myself and leaned my head back slightly to cool myself down. Calm down, Keiichi. Accept what has actually happened as reality. Stop thinking of anything more than that. But I couldn't help but think of it. How wonderful it would be if it turned out I was delirious and everything up until now was a figment of my imagination. Oyashiro-sama's curse wouldn't exist, and I would still be bestest buddies with Rena and the rest. I would have to be crazy. That was the first time in my life I'd ever wished for such a thing. So sad. So sad. Yes? Are you here to help? Oh, the sad music's playing. The phone rang noisily downstairs. Generally, there were no calls for me, so I never really answered the phone that much. But since my parents weren't here, I had no choice. I squirmed off the bed and went downstairs. Oh, Keiichi, if you're scared and paranoid like that, you don't sleep upstairs. That's like rule number 1. You sleep in the couch in the living room with something safe next to you. Hello? This is the Maibara residence.
Keiichi, this is Mom!
I intuitively had a bad feeling about this. It was because I thought she was going to ask me to go out and buy some things. So I took the initiative. What? I don't mind having instant noodles for dinner. There's still a lot of them. The other day we went out as a family and bought a whole case of cup noodles. I wanted to get a bunch of different kinds, actually, but they refused since the individual packs were expensive. So instead I got a whole case of the mega-sized pork bone and ginger flavored ones I liked. But my parents don't like the strong flavors and didn't touch any of them, so the cupboards were still full of them. So you see, there isn't really a need to go out shopping, right?
Keiichi, I'm not asking you to go shopping. Both Mommy and Daddy have to go to Tokyo right now because of work.
Huh? Right now? This was really abrupt.
No, we're already here. We left this afternoon. It's quite a distance to Tokyo from Hinamizawa.
Gunning it at full speed down the highway would still take 6 hours. Dad has a license, but since he doesn't like the highway, they likely took the train. It would have taken longer.
I'm thinking you might understand since you heard us speaking last night, but it has to do with Daddy's contract. Right now, things aren't going so smoothly.
Now that she mentioned it, I did remember that they talked all that time about how his job prospects weren't looking so good.
Daddy is really sensitive to things like this, so if we leave things as they are, it'll affect his work.
Part of my father's particular fragile artistic personality, his emotions changed as easily as the fall sky. You could also just say that he couldn't take criticism. But something like that could be done over the phone.
Keiichi, this is your father's job, so can you support him a little bit, please? Anyway, it's just faster to talk about it in person, so there wouldn't be any misunderstandings.
As their son, there was nothing more I could say once they started talking about work.
So we'll be back tomorrow night. Keiichi, will you be fine on your own?
It's not like I'll die or anything.
Keiichi, you shouldn't speak so lightly of dying. If there's something troubling you, just talk to us. I believe Mommy will be able to help out.
This is sad. Yesterday I did bring up if I died rather abruptly, so I suppose they were still a little worried. But really, I was more depressed by the fact that nothing would be solved by telling them. But I didn't plan on dying. At least not while I still knew nothing. I would never allow it. I won't die. I won't. I'll survive even if I have to gnaw my leg off.
Yeah, see you then. Tomorrow morning, make sure to wake up. And eat your breakfast. And don't forget to take a bath and brush your teeth.
Yeah, see ya. The call ended like that. Sometimes my parents went off to Tokyo for business meetings, but Tokyo was far away. They normally did things by phone. The times they did go were normally planned out in advance. It never happened this suddenly. I couldn't say that those circumstances didn't feel strange, or rather unnatural. Anyway, I only needed to recognize the reality of the situation. That tonight I was the only one in the house. That when my parents came back from work, I'd be gone, missing, vanished. Looking back on the series of events of the previous 5 years involving Oyashiro-sama's curse, it wouldn't seem that strange at all. Come to think of it, it was getting pretty late. I didn't think it was good that the only light on in the whole house was from my room on the second floor. It was the same as broadcasting to the enemy that my parents were gone and this was their chance. First I ran to the living room, flicked on the lights, and turned on the TV to a reassuring volume. Next was the study. I similarly turned on the lights and some music. With this, from the outside, it would look like my parents were here. Once again, I went through the house, checking to see if there was anything left unlocked. When I saw the veranda... Is that a veranda? Veranda? I'm gonna say veranda because it sounds fancier. The veranda and the laundry still hanging out there, I went pale. That would have made it too obvious. I needed to take it down. I snatched down the laundry haphazardly and erased all traces that my mother wasn't there. I should be fine now. The garage! They hadn't gone all the way to Tokyo by car, but they had gone up to Okinomiya Station. The garage was empty, wide open, and in plain sight. This was not good. I panicked and rushed out the back to close the normally open garage door. Should be fine now. Oh, I needed to get the paper. Mom always got the paper. Since they left in the afternoon, the evening paper was still there. My premonition was correct. I pulled out everything from the mailbox and dropped it in the entryway. With this, for sure this time, it should be fine. Come to think of it, leaving the cupboard busted like that for my little freakout was kind of bad. I'll just say I tripped and fell and the bat I was holding smashed into it. Even so, just leaving it in its current state wasn't good. I should clean it up a little before Mom got back and scolded me. I remembered that there was a broom and dustpan in the closet. As I was going to get them, the phone rang once again. Who's calling? We'll find out in the next episode. Thank you all for watching. I've been Meisterbloo. This is so... I love it so much, but it's so sad, so spooky. I keep thinking there's something behind me because of the stupid fan. I will see you on the next video, so until then, everybody, peace out.